Hello friends, welcome back to Innovations in Marketing and Marketing of Innovation. We have been building up a very interesting case, at least I feel that it's an interesting case when we are talking of marketing of innovations with respect to whatever we have tried to understand in terms of innovations in marketing. And now we have reached to a situation wherein we are wondering about that how should be the product life cycle when we are talking about innovations. There is a scant literature in terms of product life cycle and driving of product life cycle. You would remember that I have talked about flexibility in positioning and flexibility in association with all the elements of marketing mix when we were referring to marketing of innovations. Should we be having that similar context of as far as product life cycle goes? I would be talking briefly about product life cycle, what product life cycle is, but you know about product life cycle. We have talked about product life cycle in totality when we were talking in innovations in marketing and in rest of my subjects and any other subject for that matter. You can go in a detail, about a detailed account of product life cycle if you would go through my videos in product and brand management, the subject which I recorded earlier. And otherwise also you just punch in product life cycle in Google and you would find n number of articles and pictures associated with product life cycle. So if that is the thing which we have to carry forward in terms of marketing of innovations, then there would be a complexity which we would face in terms of as far as growth and maturity goes, because it is not innovation if things mature and stabilize and decline. Of course, that is, we are not talking of marketing of innovations. You see, up till now we are trying to build up a case around that. Somehow we have innovated upon a product and we have brought in, and then we are talking in terms of product life cycle. But here I would subscribe to an addition in whatever we are talking about as far as the life cycle situation goes. So now let me take you towards, compulsorily we have to think in terms of a two-dimensional plane when we are talking of a life cycle kind of a situation wherein something gets initiated. Now here are 2-3 elements which we are talking about as far as marketing of innovation goes. For example, we are going, and you see, I would be putting up situations in front of you and try to come up with me while imagining about innovation and marketing of innovation. For example, we are having a product X, let us say a detergent powder or a soap, even a mobile phone, a pen, whichever way you want to look at it, a bicycle for that matter. And it is very interesting, recently an IIT Bombay startup has developed a foldable bicycle. So I am yet exploring that product and I would be mentioning about that product in my subsequent sessions as well. It is an interesting product and it is now on sales through different platforms. A very nice foldable bicycle and then with full wheels basically. Now you see, bicycle is existing, and let us start our story from this if at all we wish to. So bicycles are a product which are for example, X company is producing X bicycle and they are having a sale which signifies growth, for example. So we are somewhere here. Now you innovate upon this product. So you see, are you by all means what we discuss in product life cycle concept, that means we are trying to extend this thing somewhere here, and I have talked about this earlier as well, the somewhere here and so on. So this can be one scenario wherein you are having a product, it is going towards a sales trajectory, it stays there for a while, you innovate upon that product and somehow you are pushing that thing towards a different kind of a trajectory. That is what we do. We and I remember I have talked about these kind of things in product line description as well earlier. But this is one scenario which I want to project in front of you. Now let us look at another scenario, that an innovation is being built up from the first stage. So we are having a new product with reference to innovation. It may be new to this world, it may be newer in terms of as far as being a substitute and alternative and so on. So we are going for this kind of a thing, for example soya based milk or any other for that matter. So it's a variant, it's having different kinds of ingredients, but it is having it is solving a particular kind of a purpose as far as the usage goes. So it starts from here. more or less. And then we are trying to build up the same trajectory in terms of normal product life cycle, which we go on as far as, and this kind of a scenario can be there. So this is another kind of a scenario which we are trying to. We can develop further scenarios around these kind of thoughts, wherein we say that okay, one life cycle can be imagined in terms of an innovation being substitution. One life cycle can be imagined in terms of this innovation with reference to an alternative. We have talked about that. So just recall those kind of discussions we have had. You are the product manager, you are the marketer, and you are marketing innovation. Now you have different kinds of scenarios as far as the whole situation goes. New to this world, an incremental innovation, or substitute, or can be seen with the perspective of substitution alternative. What would you do? In case of the earlier scenario, you may pick it up from this kind of a place and then put it towards a different kind of a trajectory, but then this graph has to be broken into somewhat different stages. This graph has to be brought in as far as this example, for example, now you are going for an incremental change as far as the scenario goes. So we have to rethink about that graph, that now it is new avatar, as far as, although it can be seen as a product line change, but we have to see it with the reference of a newer version and newer avatar. And then we have to think in terms of this kind of a stage afresh as far as the whole scenario goes. I would be talking about this specifically when we would be referring to branding and innovation in my next session. But here you are trying to put it up from, or you are imagining the life cycle afresh, because you would be counting the sales of this new avatar afresh at this particular kind of a moment, although it is a product life cycle extension technically speaking. So that is one part. And then you have to think in terms of how you would be steering this whole scenario. Now we are reaching to the same plane if the product has been entirely new, which we saw in the earlier description. For example, as I said, it's a substitution and alternative perspective. So now both the situations are same. Here it is entirely new kind of a thing basically, here it is an extension kind of a thing basically, and both we have to imagine afresh. What we are looking at when we are thinking in terms of product life cycle, in terms of marketing of innovation, that as soon as the innovation comes into being, we have to look at it with the perspective of a newer life cycle. That is one part. The other part is, which makes it more interesting as far as the whole scenario goes, that if we are looking at it with the perspective of a fresh situation or fresh life cycle, and we do not want that life cycle to enter into the similar kind of a trajectory as it happens in conventional products, growth, maturity and decline. That means we have to be innovative enough in terms of our marketing of that product at every stage. Now this becomes interesting basically, and then let's merge this graph, because we are on the same plane. So let's try and think in terms of let me make it a larger. So now you see we are starting from here. This is the initial most phase, and I strongly recommend you to look at it, because we are marketing of, we are thinking in terms of marketing of innovation, and we are pushing it up as far as the adaptation level goes. And I talked about that in my last session, wherein Rogers talked about as far as innovation adaptation goes. So if we are talking of innovation adaptation, so definitely that takes some time and so on, and that has to be merged with as far as the life cycle situation goes. But at this moment, try and imagine that somehow it is in the initial most phase, which by convention requires more communication, more distribution. But remember one thing, and now when I am trying to express this, try and revisit the earlier sessions which we have had in innovations in marketing. When we are going for this kind of a trajectory in product life cycle in terms of marketing of innovations, we have to be innovative in terms of communication and distribution at this, and also pricing at this first stage. So we, while going for product life cycle in terms of marketing of innovation, innovation is the key word which we keep on steering through the stages all through. So here if we have to go for larger communication instead of, or instead or along with larger communication, we have to go for innovative communication. Innovative communication, innovative distribution, innovative pricing, all through. And that is why I discussed innovations in marketing before talking about marketing of innovations at length. So, we have to be innovative enough to take that innovation through its life cycle basically. That is one part. So, how innovatively we can communicate about that innovation, that we have to decide and choose at the very first initial most space. Because if we will go with the conventional kind of an approach, advertising in a conventional form or talking to people in a conventional form, we would not be able to project and position that innovation, and we won't be able to be flexible in terms of as far as the positioning goes. So, whenever you say that, okay, for example, this foldable bicycle, for example. Now this example can be talked about with respect to be an appropriate example when we are mentioning this. So, it can be an extension to the cycle, but now we are taking it as a fresh kind of a life cycle as far as the product goes, despite of being the line extension. Now, here if we are communicating that it is a bicycle, it is a foldable bicycle, it does not matter, because the customer would be comparing that as being a bicycle, probably not as being an innovation actually. And the other day if we are trying to position that as as a bicycle later on, probably when scope of innovation gets limited in the product and we are trying to put up being innovative in distribution, other elements, and then also we reach to a point wherein no further innovation can be thought of as far as the whole scenario goes, and we try slightly reposition or enhance the positioning of that product later on. Probably that flexibility won't be there if we somehow do not project it as an innovation at this particular kind of a stage. So, that foldable bicycle has to be projected as foldable bicycle with different kinds of usage, or let us say similar usage with different kinds of a perspective associated with that kind of a usage. For example, we can say that that foldable bicycle now can be used for several kinds of purposes. So, for example, someone is going from a suburb to the main city by let us say a public transport like metro, or let us say if we do not have scope for carrying bicycles in metros, then definitely if we are going by cars or somewhere some other transport, we board off there or we park our car there, then this foldable bicycle comes into being and we can bicycle within the city and so on. Those kind of elements, easy to carry is always there. Then for example, we are going to some hilly areas, for example, in northern parts of India, most visited tourism places are Mussoorie and Nainital and these kind of places wherein tourists go, and on weekends you have almost 5 kilometers or 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers of lines as far as the whole automotives go. And they are waiting for 5 hours, 6 hours to just enter into the city, park their car somewhere safe and then go with their family to stay somewhere and to roam around. And you see, you have planned a vacation for 2 days and somehow 10 hours you have passed in as far as reaching and coming out. I am not saying that this is the only solution, but if you are having 3 foldable bicycles on the rooftop of your cars basically, and there is a parking space 2.5 or 3 kilometers ahead of the city, you just take your bicycles. Even if you are not carrying all the things to the hotel, then still you can enter into the city. So, you see that projection can be done. I mean to say that somehow, this is just an example. I am not saying that you would be easily riding through Mussoorie and Nainital on the steep hills with the help of bicycles, but still these can be some of those kinds of positioning elements and communication elements, or and then you have to be innovative through the modes of communication as well. I have talked about that at length. So, you can choose different kinds of modes and different kinds of methods to communicate this thing to the customers as such. You can go through direct digital kind of a communication, or you can have communication at the onset of the tourist places, that from here onwards use your foldable bicycles, or you have foldable bicycles on rent or whatsoever. There can be different kinds of methods associated with as far as communication goes, and then when you develop this kind of a marketing through such kinds of places, this is just for example, you can create an innovative distribution system for customers to have that kind of an opportunity there, or customers in from big cities who are traveling to those kind of places. You can advertise heavily that if you are going to those kind of places, you must have 1 or 2 foldable bicycles with you. Why not? You are carrying so much of luggage, why not to carry foldable bicycles there, and so on. There are several kinds of marketing elements. So, but the mainstay is that we have to be innovative in the approach at the onset as far as the whole scenario goes. So, product life cycle in case of marketing of innovations require innovation at every stage. That is what I mean to say. Then when you are going for growth, growth has different kinds of elements basically, and we know about those elements. I would not be specifically going to those details, although I would be showing product life cycle graph once again. But then we have to be innovative enough in terms of as far as the parameters of growth or how to steer growth, because here you see, again we have to think in terms of driving product life cycle in case of marketing of innovation. Now, the time comes, because we are driving innovation through being innovative as far as the elements of marketing goes. So, here at the growth level, we must start, I should say we must start doing that before growth even, but especially in growth we must be thinking in terms of product innovation also. I am not specifically recommending about product line change so easily, so aptly, but definitely many organizations, they have been successfully doing that. Randomly you may recall Apple and several hardware organizations and several computer manufacturers and several other mobile manufacturers who are actually focusing upon bringing in product innovation at this stage. I am not saying that just to disregard what you have been doing. Their motive is to drive product life cycle stage with being innovative at this stage. So, they started with innovative communication through innovative modes. Now, they are driving it towards product innovation once again, because that would help you in avoiding maturity stage. Here, if you go for this kind of an innovation, this would keep on a growth trajectory. And you see, very interesting part, if you are going for this kind of a growth trajectory, then again, because you have introduced another innovation, so you can initiate another life cycle as far as the situation goes. You may look at this graph in totality as well, where this trajectory is moving up, but then you can think in terms of as far as another life cycle goes. Apple iPhone 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 Pro, and I do not know how many more. And there are several other kinds of products which are available in due course of time as far as the whole scenario goes. And you see, in food products also, when McDonald's talk about, they think in terms of Mac Aloo Tikki is a burger, it is a vegetable burger, it has potatoes, but then it is having a different kind of a trajectory when it gets initiated as far as, and it is just an example. I am just randomly putting up examples in front of you with reference to whenever you introduce product and service innovation at the core, then you may manage to think in terms of life cycle or afresh. Message here is that one has to be innovative all through as far as when you are driving the product life cycle in terms of innovative products or services, or I would say to phrase it, that you have to be innovative all through the product life cycle when you are talking of marketing of innovations. So, innovative perspective in product life cycle, that is what you have to do. Now, let me briefly show you that this is conventionally what we look at as far as the product life cycle situation goes. So, you see product development phase, that definitely this has to pass. But when we are looking at product life cycle situation of marketing of innovation, product development phase gets somewhere merged with as far as this whole scenario goes. So, you might not be having, although it is simultaneously going on when you are steering the pre-version of this kind of a product basically. So, that development phase but somehow merges with this whole scenario. This is one life cycle wherein this research and development and this development phase collated with when you are putting up the previous product, and then as soon as the new product comes in, you bring it to as far as the whole situation goes. So that saves you somehow to go for extremely new kind of situation. You may say that if the product is extremely new to this world, then are we going for this product development phase? Yes, definitely at that particular point of time the development phase would exist, but then after that you may always go for that kind of a thing which we are going on for. Then you see introduction phase, I told you conventionally we are going for a widespread communication XYZ whatsoever, but if we are innovative enough as far as the whole perspective goes, innovative in communication about the product, innovative through the modes of communication, because innovation should match innovation as far as the whole scenario goes. And then in growth, as I said, at this particular stage we start thinking in terms of product innovation, service innovation, and more or less. To substantiate this point, if you will look into the conventional frame of product life cycle perspective, which was very intelligently projected by several authors, and especially Theodore Levitt contributed a lot as far as the whole scenario goes, and we have chosen the reference of Philip Kotler and Armstrong, Principles of Marketing, Upper Saddle River, New Jersey, Pearson Education Incorporated in 2012. So here if you will go for this kind of a thing, basically wherein we have not been innovative. So look at those products which have followed a conventional life cycle plan, and you would realize that many a times those kind of products, they went to uphill, then they started going for a maturity kind of a thing, and then they declined. I talked about saddle also once in our discussions in previous sessions. So saddle also comes in, and here it's a very important kind of a discussion here, discussion point here, that if somehow innovation has to pass through saddle basically because of some adaptation situation, or as the author has aptly described there, and I would not go into the details repeatedly because we have talked about that. So please refer to those slides, and especially refer to product and brand management videos also, which will aptly describe this kind of a portion. Now if we are going for a dip in sales, which is termed as or described as saddle or saddle effect when we are talking of as far as innovation goes, so that can also be shortened if we intelligently innovate or keep on innovating at this phase in the whole scenario. And another interesting element which now we must understand, that we have chosen from an article in Harvard Business Review, that Applegate, LM and Harold B and Welch J 2009, don't just survive, thrive, leading innovation in good times and bad, Harvard Business School. So this article which we have referred to, that substantiates the argument, but with a business perspective. So when we are talking about product life cycle, we have different business elements to be thought of, and since the beginning we have been talking about this subject with reference to innovations in marketing, with reference to value chain marketing as well, value network marketing as well, value web marketing as well, and so on. So this article and this reference would collate the thought process which we are trying to dwell upon in as far as our product life cycle discussion goes. So let us see how this substantiate whatever we are trying to find out. So the beginning of the article is associated with Howard Stevenson 1983 says that entrepreneurship is the relentless pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resources currently controlled. Very apt kind of a quote, wherein this relentless pursuit of opportunity without regard to the resource currently controlled, although it is referring to entrepreneurship, but here it is substantiated with as far as entrepreneurship with reference to innovations and marketing of innovations as such, and that is why we took that as far as a supportive quote. So you see, the article says that when defining future opportunities, entrepreneurial leaders must be able to clarify the assumptions they are making about the strategic position they want to achieve, the capabilities and resources needed to achieve that position, and the value that will be delivered to all stakeholders. Since assumptions are based on forecasts, entrepreneurial leaders must also learn to identify key areas of uncertainty and relentlessly test and refine the business model assumptions as they engage the market and launch the new venture. You see, this article talks about entrepreneurship and strategic perspective associated with as far as the whole scenario goes, but here we are thinking in terms of innovation with reference to business perspective also. Although our focus is marketing of innovations and understanding product life cycle nuances associated with marketing of innovations, wherein we conclude that we have to be innovative throughout the phases of, as far as the life cycle of the product or our service, our innovation goes, and then we have to go for a product augmentation or product change at the stage of the growth and generate a new product life cycle graph. That is how we summarize that. But then there are so many elements throughout our business and throughout the value chain which have to be considered while we are trying to do that, because you have to convince many people on that, you have to convince many functionalities and many departments on that, and you have to convince your value chain partners as well, and you have to convince your finance department as well that why you are cutting it off, why you are going for a new cycle kind of a change when things are going on well, when money is being pouring in, and then when when value is being is rising. At that juncture, you have to convince all the partners, including the future customers, with the relevance of innovation, and that is where the whole story comes in. So finally, again I'm coming back to the article. Finally, once the new venture gains traction with early adopter customers, entrepreneurial leaders must transition to high growth and continue the process of innovation as they build a business that can exploit the full potential of the opportunity over time while being continuously innovative. That is the addition I want to make here as far as the whole scenario goes. The shift from thinking about entrepreneurship as a stage in launching and growing businesses, the shift from marketing of innovations as a stage in launching and growing the innovation to a way of leading a business throughout the innovation life cycle is critical for success in turbulent or any century for that matter. 21st century, we always say it is a turbulent century. This graph must be noted. The article has aptly described this graph with reference to explore, engage, experiment situation, wherein this is horizontal dotted line takes us towards an invest phase, and then create value phase is upside, wherein the first first transition is time to cash flow, take it towards a positive cash flow, basically when cash flow is becoming positive, and then payback period is coming in. So this is an investment phase, and then this is an emerge phase which takes us towards exploiting growth options, going for transformation, and if before the maturity comes. So this particular description is talking about how entrepreneurially we can think in terms of marketing of innovation, and how strategically we can include different kinds of functionalities while we are thinking of that within the business frame. And we have already been talking about how strategically and systematically we can bring value chain partners on board when we are driving this life cycle situation or when we are driving the marketing of innovation. And we have also discussed how we bring on value network partners or whole of the network to support the innovation phases which we are going through or which we would grow through for driving the product life cycle situation as such. So if you will look at this graph and the description we have had earlier, this one, you would realize that the whole business scenario has to be in consonance with our efforts of driving the product life cycle when we are referring to marketing of innovations. I have already summarized that earlier, and I tried to phrase it as well, but ending note is that marketing the product life cycle in terms of innovations, while talking about marketing of innovations, we have to be innovative in terms of driving the product life cycle. We have to think innovation, we have to think in terms of innovations in marketing for marketing of innovations, and that is the ending note. So whenever you are thinking of product life cycle as far as innovations go, think of innovations in marketing for marketing of innovations, and that brings both the parts of this subject together. Here onwards, I would be dwelling upon both these parts together to conclude this subject in few sessions from now. Stay with me, keep thinking in terms of your own examples with reference to the discussions we are having. I would be catching up back with a discussion on branding of innovations very soon. Till then, goodbye.